Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Diving Deeper from Longfleet Baptist Church. My name's Ken, I'm the minister here, and today I'm joined by my wife, Nicky.
Hello.
And in this episode, we're taking a look at the Ascension of Jesus as recorded in the book of Acts by Luke, when Jesus, after 40 days after his resurrection, spoke to his disciples on the Mount of Olives and then was taken up into the clouds into heaven to be with his Father. And we begin with a question about the Holy Spirit. We did a lot on the Holy Spirit last year, so you should all be experts on the Holy Spirit. But in John's Gospel, in John 20, Jesus is with his disciples after the resurrection, and he breathes on them and they receive the Holy Spirit. But in the book of Acts, they don't receive the Holy Spirit until the day of Pentecost. In Acts 1, Jesus tells his disciples to go to Jerusalem where they'll receive the Spirit. So how do we account for this discrepancy that in John's Gospel they receive the Holy Spirit on the day of resurrection, but in Luke's account in Acts they have to wait until the day of Pentecost? How do we account for that difference, do you think?
My only thought was that there might be a smaller number with an intimate group with Jesus, and then the Acts account is all the believers. So were there more?
Yeah, I think that's probably part of it. In John's Gospel, you've only got a few of the disciples. It may not even be the whole 11 of them. It's a few of them. Whereas on the day of Pentecost, it says all the believers are together. So that may account for it as well. That the Pentecost is all believers receive the Holy Spirit rather than just as disciples. Although that's still, in Acts 1, Jesus is only talking to the small group of disciples.
Yeah.
I mean, we mentioned earlier about the dedication of the temple in 2 Chronicles 7, and how when Solomon prayed and dedicated the temple, the Spirit fell as a fire on the temple, and we sing that song. Your glory fell and the fire came, or however it goes. And I wonder if there's something there. I know not all Christians agree with me about this, but I think that the Christian church is the continuation of the nation of Israel. Not that it's replaced Israel, but that it is Israel, that it kind of developed into the Christian church. And then there's something there about the day of Pentecost being a day of dedication of the Christian church, if that makes sense. So the disciples have already received the Spirit, but on the Pentecost, the Spirit comes as a kind of form of dedication. In the way the temple was dedicated, now the disciples are dedicated. The Christian church is dedicated to do that job that the temple once did. Because we know that
seal the fate of the church going forward. Having that experience is a very, very symbolic one as well.
Yeah, because we know that not too long after this, 30 years or so, the Jewish temple in Israel was destroyed by the Romans, never to function again.
Yeah.
And so how does that faith in Yahweh, how does that function without a temple? Well, the answer is that Jesus is the temple and his church is the temple, and that church needed to be, and I don't mean a building, I mean all the believers, all Christian believers. So a couple of possible explanations there of why the discrepancy between John's Gospel and the book of Acts, that maybe the book of Acts is for all believers, not just for the disciples. And it's something about a dedication. Pentecost is a day of dedication for the Christian church, dedicated to take on this role as the temple. And I think, there's strong allusions there between the Acts day of Pentecost and the 2 Chronicles day of dedication of the temple.
Yeah.
And then in Acts 1, 6 and 7, the disciples say to Jesus, "Lord, is this the time when you will restore the kingdom to Israel?" And Jesus replies, "It's not for you to know the times or periods that the Father has set by his own authority." So this appears to be an important question to the disciples, and you would want to know, if Jesus is the Messiah, you'd want to know, when's he going to rescue your nation from Roman oppression? It's a fair enough question. But why does Jesus appear to dismiss that question out of hand? Why does he not even really engage with it?
I think this is a big problem for Christians, in that we really get bogged down by detail. And I know that you spoke on Sunday about the work that I do. You know, I'm trying to talk to clients about, you know, we've got to focus on this, not this. You know, there's so much prophetic stuff across the whole Old Testament and in the New Testament. You know, the books of Revelation and, you know, all that stuff. But you know, we're rooted in a certain time and place. God hasn't told us, you know, what matters right now is the work that we do. Right, you will be my witnesses throughout all the world.
Yeah.
What does it matter if a certain prophecy does or doesn't happen? If it's in another country, another area, all right, yeah, it might be important, but it's not important to the witness that I am right here in the UK, in Dorset, in Poole, in my house. You know, there's a point that actually Jesus is saying to them, this isn't the biggest focus of your life right now. I've given you the Holy Spirit. Go and do the work. And I think that is really, really relevant.
Yeah.
Throughout history, and more so now than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm reminded of the passage in one of the Gospels where the disciples meet a man born blind. And they say to Jesus, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And a possible translation is Jesus says, actually, that doesn't really matter. Let's just get on with the task in hand and make him better. It's not important. What's important is that he's healed and the power of God can heal him. And it's a bit like this. It doesn't really matter if God's going to restore Israel. And does that mean the modern day nation of Israel? Probably not, I think. Does that mean the Christian church? Does that mean something completely different that we haven't even thought about? It doesn't really matter. What matters is, like I said, getting on with the task at hand, which is the Great Commission that all four of the Gospels have the Great Commission. And the book of Acts has the Great Commission. It actually has it here in this account of the Ascension. You will be my witnesses to the ends of the earth. Jesus is absolutely focused on that, and he wants his disciples to be absolutely focused on that. He doesn't really want us to worry about the Revelation, Daniel, and his own prophecies against the temple and against Jerusalem even. He wants us to focus on the task. And I think Christians often get bogged down on things. I mean, there are other things that Christians get bogged down on, women in leadership, same-sex marriage, all sorts of things that they're kind of important, but in another way they're red herrings as well. It's like, actually just get on and tell people how great God is, tell people that they're forgiven, you know.
I think the point was also the Holy Spirit coming upon the disciples is a radical transformation. You know, you become part of that temple experience. You become the witnesses throughout the world. And so the power should radically change our focus.
Yeah. And
that's also key here is, you know, he's saying this just before the Holy Spirit comes in the Pentecost experience, isn't it? So you haven't yet experienced what's going to change you, so just hold on. It's almost like he's saying, just wait, there's more to come.
Yeah.
So there's that as well.
I like what you said there. We become the temple experience. I like that. I think that's because the temple was meant to be how everyone could interact with Yahweh. So you had, the Holy of Holies where only the priests could go. Then you had the next court where Jews could go. Then you had the outer courts where the Gentiles could go. So actually everyone was welcome to the temple in one state or another to worship Yahweh. And now the church has replaced that, and we become the temple experience, the temple function.
If
people come to us. People come to us to interact with God.
Yeah.
And
if we're so bogged down by the detail, we miss the power inside of us that should be attractive to other people.
Yeah.
People should be coming to us to feel the power of God.
Yeah.
And if they're not, we have to ask ourselves, well, where's the Holy Spirit in our lives? Why are we worried about all these other matters and not worried about filling ourselves so that other people can see it?
Yeah.
And that would be, that would be important to me.
Yeah, yeah. There's three things that happen at the Ascension. So Jesus, he promises the Holy Spirit to his disciples. He tells them they'll be his witnesses to the end of the world. And then these two men, whether they're angels or whoever they are, appear and they say, Jesus will return. So you've got those three things that are promised to the disciples. You'll receive the Holy Spirit, you'll be my witnesses, and Jesus will return. So that Great Commission bit in the middle, you'll be my witnesses to the end of the earth. Why is that topped and tailed by the promise of the Holy Spirit and the promise of Jesus' return? Why is that sandwiched in the middle there, do you think? You can't do the Great Commission without the Holy Spirit.
Well, that is very true.
So if you're not empowered by the Holy Spirit, you can't do the Great Commission. You can't. Humans, we can't do that in our own power,
which may be relevant to the question before. You couldn't have actually done it without. See, why are you focusing on that? You haven't given you the Holy Spirit. You can only do this job with the Holy Spirit. Yeah. So just there's the promise. Hold on.
So that's why I think the promise of the Holy Spirit comes first, and then Jesus gives them the Great Commission. Because if you've not got the Spirit in your life, there's absolutely no point trying to witness to Christ. And then the return of Jesus is promised as a hope. Your labours won't be in vain. Witness to me because I'm coming back. So it gives us that hope. So Paul talks about pressing on towards the goal, and the goal is that ultimately one day we'll be united with Christ, either at death or when he returns, if that's before our death. So I think it's really important that Great Commission is sandwiched between those two promises, because without those, without the Spirit you can't do it, and without the hope of Christ returning, what's the point in doing it? So I think that's really important.
Yep.
So how does the promise of Jesus' return make you feel? How does it make you feel? But about your own faith, but also about your responsibility to be a witness?
It's a good question. Not being a very touchy-feely type of person, I kind of just get on with the job. But I guess there's always that element of you just know that there's something in this faith, that there's something in this walk, and there's something in this sacrifice. And there isn't anything in the Bible that has ever said to me that wouldn't be true. That's a risk to give up everything that I've had to do the work that I'm currently doing to live a life for him. So it's kind of maybe a confidence.
Yeah,
that
gives you confidence.
I can just trust that he's got this in a way. And 21st century, Britain is very different from sort of Palestinian Jesus time. And, have we seen Jesus return? No, but there's been loads of people that have testified throughout the history of God appearing to them and them being radically changed and doing things. So whether this is personally, you're going to see Jesus, or, there will be a big second coming. Again, we don't know, and we're not meant to know.
No.
It comes back to that point, okay? But I know that my walk is with him, and that is all that matters.
Yeah.
It really is all that matters. What the detail looks like isn't, coming back to that point. The confidence that the Holy Spirit gives you to carry on the journey is the same as it was then, as it is now. That's the point.
Yeah. I think we see a bit in Paul's writings a sort of development where he expects the return of Jesus to be imminent, like it's going to happen now, and you kind of get that impression from what the angels say to the disciples. You'll see him return the same way he departed, that this is imminent. And actually, even in Paul's lifetime, that he has to come to terms with the fact it's not imminent. It's 40, 50 years. Oh no, it's not even 40, 50 years. And we're 2,000 years removed from these events, and it still hasn't happened. And I think Paul encourages us, actually, it is going to happen. Just keep going. And that, therefore, witnessing to Jesus, being Jesus' witness around the world, well, actually, what if he comes back tomorrow and all those millions of people that haven't at least heard the good news, that you're forgiven, you're loved, there is a creator God and he loves you and he forgives you? What about all those people that haven't heard that? And so it should be a motivation to witness. And I'm not necessarily talking about evangelism, standing on street corners and preaching hellfire and damnation, or even going off and doing ministry, but our contribution to that Great Commission. What are our skills? What are our gifts? How do we contribute to that Great Commission? We spoke about this last week. It's about what are you doing about witnessing to Christ. And there's that return gives you hope that actually one day it will all be worth it. But it also gives you a motivation, because what if he comes back today and there's people that don't know?
It's also a personal revelation that he'd come and see you personally. I know people who've, in the Muslim world, there's lots of testimonies about people fasting and praying and then Jesus appearing to them.
Yeah.
I had a dream, very powerful dream, where I felt the Holy Spirit all over me afterwards. And, you don't know when those moments are going to happen. So always be ready. And there's those parables in the Gospels about being ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that moment, that could be it. Those disciples could have had plenty of encounters with the Holy Spirit, with God's power before and after. And they just knew. And, that's the biggest focus. To be ready, to be receiving his power for whatever time comes.
Yeah. So I think that's important as well. It's not just necessarily about the big second coming of Jesus, the return. It's about his appearances through the power of the Spirit to us. So there we go. We've had a look at the ascension in Luke, and these three promises. Jesus promises his disciples his Holy Spirit. He promises that we'll be his witnesses around the world. And then there's the promise that he will return. And I hope that you, as you look at the account of the ascension, you would understand those three things. And then be ready. As Nicky said, it's about being ready, being prepared. So we do have a weekly Bible studies at Longfleet Baptist Church. Wednesday nights we meet on Zoom. And if you want to join us, wherever you are in the world or in the country, don't have to be in Poole, don't have to be part of our church, you're welcome to join us on Zoom. The details are on our website. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel and give us a like. I hate saying that, but give us a thumbs up and a like. And do check out our website. And we hope and pray for you that as you consider this account of the ascension, you would know the power of the Holy Spirit in your life. You would desire to witness for Jesus in whatever way he leads you to do that. And that you would be confident that he will return. And in this crazy, messed up world, let's be confident that Christ will return. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again. Thanks.
Thank you.